What is poppin'? It is the Slapton. I'm but a lowly Slapton riding these ReFi waves, and this is This Week in ReFi, where we give you all of the ReFi news fit to go ape wild over. With me is the man with the plan, the Estonian madman, the man of perpetual vacation, Rez.
Hello, it me, still on vacation.
Is this an Estonian thing where you are on vacation? Like, do you have an Estonian life that's vacation for 3 months?
There's actually like quite a big Estonian tech company that does have a sabbatical thing of, if you're around for 4 years, you get to have a 4 month uninterrupted vacation where you can take your normal vacation on top of that.
Can can anybody work for the? What do they do?
Uh, I think that's TransferWise, that they're now known as Wise. They do like international payments.
Wow. And why don't you work for them, Rez?
I have asked myself that at least once historically.
Think about how tan you could be by the end of summer if you were on vacation forever.
I know, right? Like one of my best friends is like currently on that vacation.
That's incredible, man. That's like being a teacher, except you don't have to deal with parents and students.
Amazing.
Amazing. Yes. Anyway,
Yeah,
we have a lot. We don't have a lot. I'm not going to even lie. We don't have a lot to talk about this week. I think everybody's on vacation. I think all of
yeah,
ReFi
exactly.
is on vacation. I think Verra is on vacation,
Hmm.
which we're going to discuss. I
Uh-huh.
think they're perpetually on vacation. Um, we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the fact that everyone's on vacation. We're going to discuss Polygon and how it's apparently the most green thing in the history of man. We're going to discuss some macro things. We always got stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah,
So
but for the people watching this on YouTube, I think you can see how long the video is, so your expectations should be managed.
you're predicting that we're going to have it. I'm going to do my best to make this as lengthy and as drawn out as possible. Okay?
Very
We're
cool.
going to hit an hour and a half. This is going to be the longest one yet, just to prove that we can do it. We had talked about that beautiful job in Estonia. What's it called? Livewire?
No, TransferWise or now
Trans-
Wise,
Live,
just Wise.
Livewire, I think, is a website that has like crazy videos. Anyway, that sounds like a good job, but that isn't the only good job. We have an entire job board, and specifically for ReFi jobs, Rez. If you're looking to get into ReFi, and it could be a bunch of domains. You could be a software engineer. You could be into marketing and growth. You could be into people and HR, business management and strategy, product design, just design in general. I mean, we have a curated job board free to join, and we're posting jobs all the time on there. And get yourself in there. And that's all I have to say about
Yeah.
that this week. Hey, well, I'll ask you this, Rez. Have you ever wanted to be a software engineer at in for ReFi before?
Hmm. For ReFi.
Yes, for ReFi, and these are all ReFi jobs.
Um, Maybe.
Well, you can do that if you go onto this talent collective for free and put a profile, and you can apply to Regen Network Software Engineering,
Aha.
and then
Cool.
and then you can build everything that you want to build. What would you build?
Uh, Still would be building Solid World at the end of the
There
day.
you go.
That's the thing I want to build.
A company man through and through.
Hmm.
All right, so we had mentioned that Vera was perhaps on vacation like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
This statement just came through. Today's the 24th. Yeah, like today. Not too long ago. Hour and a half ago. Statement from ReFi organizations Klima DAO, Moss Earth, C3, and SCB Group on Vera's pledge for public consultation on tokenization of carbon credits. The context of this, of course, is that Vera is no longer allowing the current way that we were bridging credits on chain to continue. And they said, well, we'll talk about this. I believe they said this a month ago. It's been 29 days. We will discuss
Yep.
this. We will consult on this. What
In 10
10
days.
days? Um,
Almost 30 days ago.
well, I
Let's go.
you had posted this on Twitter, and I made the joke, which I think is hilarious, that they're that they're working on metric days, and that's different than imperial days. But
Mm.
what could be another more realistic explanation for why Vera would say we will meet in 10 days or start conversations in 10 days, and 3 times that later, that still hasn't happened.
I think the announcement itself was a knee-jerk reaction and got a lot of like bad reactions from everyone in the community. And in the background, they've probably had to do a lot more reconciling on, it turned out that their stakeholders' opinions were different from what they expected, perhaps.
Indeed. And so is it, that makes sense. But then why would it take this long? Any theories on why it would take so long to actually have the consultation?
Because I think that they want to make their mind up before they have the consultation.
Okay. So they're doing some...
It's like your right is to, your right is to speak, not to be heard kind of situation where, we're taking consultation after we get an answer.
Yeah, that's always the threat of these consultation periods. There's an asymmetry in power, right? Verra has the power here, and everybody else is essentially looking to Verra and saying, like almost looking up, please, sir, may I have some scraps? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's if we want to be real, that's the position that some of these ReFi, on-chain entities are in.
Yep.
Klima DAO, Toucan, Moss. Well, maybe not Moss, right? Don't they have a verification system independent of... No,
all Verra certified Red Plus.
Okay, got it. They need Verra. I'm going to speak bluntly here. They need Verra more than Verra needs them at this moment. That's just the reality situation. Now, hopefully, I would like to see that change. So Verra can make up its mind. To your point, I'm not saying they will. And that is always the threat when you have these consultations where there's an asymmetry of power. I have personally been involved in them on the side of needing somebody more than they need me. And it does feel like a rubber stamp. And it is not fun. And I hope it is not that. And usually what it is an appearance of democratic consultation. But it's really hiding a more centralized, tyrannical
process.
Hierarchical process.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they open up the floor for you to speak, but, leave the room. That's the kind of like situation that you can have in these kind of dynamics. It's, there's no guarantee that the decision isn't already made. And I got the impression based on what the legal advisor, I believe, from Verra gave in the Time interview, where he was like, let's basically just do centralized systems with banks. We don't want to do any of this like open, transparent stuff.
Yes, which is not what we're aiming to do. But I have a thought on this, Rez. Like, let's assume that happens. Let's just, and it seems to be a relatively good probability that this happens, considering who Verra is, considering what they're used to, their modus operandi, considering the fact that they said it, their legal advisor said this, right? I mean, if you're paying attention to the clues being dropped, there are quite a few that are, if I had to put my money, and this is, not financial advice, I would say that Verra is going to go down the centralized path. It's going to be a more centralized solution than many people are going to want or are expecting. Let's assume this happens. I don't think it's going to ultimately be the end of ReFi or a bad thing for the space. It's an opportunity for a decentralized solution to the verification issue, which ultimately is what we need.
But my only hesitancy here is if this scenario plays out like you're describing, there's going to be a competition for political power to like gain relevance. And we're going to be in a competition over collaboration kind of mode with the space itself, which is going to suck. I think I really don't. I really hope that scenario doesn't play out, and I hope we get a scenario where we're all like still competing to decarbonize the planet instead of competing to even get our foot in the door and get to be taken seriously as a movement.
Understood, and I think that's valid, and we've already seen that in ReFi, even with the carbon bridges, or there's always that competitive. Life isn't purely collaborative, nor should it be. And life isn't purely competitive, nor should it be. But it's always a combination of the two, right?
Yeah.
that's the reality of existence. We're not all going to just collaborate, because that's not how I mean, I would even argue that's not what we should do, because there is an element of let's weed out, or let's have
Yeah, we need competing ideas, right?
Right.
Or like competing concepts or ways of doing things, because that's how we get experimentation. That's how we get evolution. We evolve faster if we have multiple, species trying to do, something very well, instead of just having this one species that doesn't get competed with.
Right, exactly. And then also in terms of efficiency, right? So if there's two solutions, one is better than the other, it should win out because it's more efficient, right? All right. So you're saying you hope that doesn't happen. I don't want to put you on the spot. I've already put myself on the spot, and maybe I've ruffled some feathers with my statement, and I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just what I believe based on the evidence and my interpretation. What is your interpretation? Like, obviously the consultation hasn't happened yet. To date, though, this can all change. How do you feel Verra will move? Do you think they will move towards a centralized method where banks are holding carbon credits, and these players like Klima and Toucan are going to be left basically pounding sand? Or do you think that this consultation will be fruitful and we will see a more decentralized solution?
I think this gets split into two different questions for me. Question number one, is tokenized carbon going to be allowed to like a reasonable degree that we can, move forward? I think the answer to that is likely to be yes. And then there's a second question, which is, are previously tokenized carbon units going to get legitimized in the process? Which I think the answer to that is leaning no for like certain reasons.
Okay. So, I mean, this would obviously have impacts on entities that are holding a large amount of previously tokenized carbon credits. The elephant in the room would be Klima DAO, which holds 15 plus million BCT. Now, that's a good point. So let's assume that going forward, tokenized carbon credits are legitimized by, and even though there's a mechanism by which we can do this in a decentralized way, that would be good for the space, and you would still have the ability for entities to push forward. But if the second thing came true, current existing entities that already went through this process would be holding a bag that would be next to worthless.
That's the worry here. Yeah,
that's the worry here. Okay, so this statement itself, you and I both read it. What do you make of the statement? And for the context, it's basically saying that Verra had pledged to have this conversation. It hasn't happened, and there's disappointment essentially. So what's your thought on that?
I mean, I posted about this myself also on Twitter, that like it's very disappointing just to see Verra go, hey, we engaged with you guys for a moment. We told you when we're going to open up the floor for comment, and we are just like ghosting you as a collective entity now. Like, you're not getting any attention, just like no response, nothing, no justification, no new thing of like, sorry, it's being delayed quite significantly, just silence. And that's very frustrating because, as I mentioned on the show before, Verra is kind of like the Federal Reserve for carbon, which just means that you need to be predictable and trustworthy and transparent, because otherwise people will not trust you to act against their best interests in a very sudden manner, which they will not have time to respond to. Because at the end of the day, Verra holds a bunch of centralized power, which it is not... it's not necessarily held accountable for applying incorrectly. So there aren't a lot of consequences. They already are the status quo. They can kind of do what they want, which is... disappointing, I think, is the best term here.
Yeah,
but
that was the message, I believe. The message, the takeaway I got from that message ultimately wasn't anger. It wasn't chastisement. It was just, hey, like, we're a little disappointed, right? And I think that's rightfully so. I mean, everybody's disappointed that we are stuck in a limbo. Just being stuck in this limbo is like, in and of itself, not having an answer is bearish. It's negative.
Yes.
A lack of clarity at this time is the same thing as having bad clarity.
Yeah.
right? There's three outcomes right now. One is no clarity, bad clarity, meaning, everything we talked about is worst case scenario, bad, or good clarity. There's only one of those three options that's good right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's the disappointment.
Yeah.
So what you just said, again, what my mind keeps going to, I think the problem is deeper than even this issue of Verra. I think the problem is we do have a reliance on a centralized system with no natural recourse. I think that's ultimately the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think people are looking downstream enough of what the origin of this problem actually is. Like they're thinking, let's just resolve this and get on with business as usual. And that's good. I agree. But that's not going to solve the ultimate problem is that we, DeFi, Web3, ReFi, decentralized by ethos, is reliant on a centralized TradFi organization to exist. And as long as that's the case, we have a single point of failure. And that single point of failure we really don't have any recourse against. I still think we need not, it wouldn't, in my opinion, it isn't nice. We need an alternative to Verra. We need a decentralized verification method. I don't know what that's going to look like, or at the very least, Rez, going back to one of our original conversations, we need competition in the space. That's the problem right now.
Yeah, there's just I wouldn't say this is almost like a natural monopoly, but it is very hard to be a hyper-relevant registry that corporates will buy on a consistent basis. We've only ever seen this happen with like free registries. These are in order CDM, Verra, and then Gold Standard. These are the ones that got legitimized over time. But we're now in this situation of, okay, Verra actually just has so much market share. Are they competing in like a healthy manner anymore? And I'm unsure if that's true or not.
Right. And this is applicable not just, this is just economics in general, right? Like one of the issues with like we'll get into this, but like TradFi oil supply is there aren't very many oil suppliers. So there's 4 or 5 major ones. If they all decide we're going to not produce more oil, like that's why we have $5 a gallon. It's why, one way to decentralize a system is to inject competition. I think that's often overlooked. We think decentralization means lack of a clear hierarchy inside of one organization, and that is decentralization. But another way to decentralize something is to have multiple organizations. You could think of it as horizontal decentralization in one domain, right? And we do not have that with verification. And I think that is the problem that isn't being talked about enough. We're too focused on the symptom and not the cause.
Yes, exactly. We need to over time, I think we need to create like more accountable structures where stakeholders' voices could be more reliably heard. I don't think the TradFi world really supports this kind of an approach because it's I think a lot harder to manipulate perhaps, and I just would like to skip forward like 5 years and see where we're at in terms of registries. I have positive hopes that everything's gonna go well, but at the end of the day, I am a perhaps irrational optimist.
Perhaps you are, Rez. Perhaps you are. Well, very interesting conversations. These are the ones that need to happen, and I think the space needs to be honest with itself. That's the reason why I bring it up. And well, hey, on to some more, I guess, positive news. We have an award that was given out. This is from Openseas. Apparently, Openseas. I didn't know this until I was scrolling the old Twitter machine. Apparently, the old Openseas, which is an NFT platform, gives out awards. And one of the awards they gave out was this year's Best Sustainability Initiative of a Blockchain or a Protocol, and it goes to Polygon. And for context there, Polygon has offset its carbon footprint through Klima Infinity. And I believe, and it also is pledging $20 million, I believe, a lot of money to green initiatives. So I'm assuming that in totality is what they were referring to. What are your thoughts on this, Sir Rez?
I keep mentioning every so often, I just like when money comes into the space, and I'm happy that people are recognizing that this is a good thing. There's more discussion around, hey, this or that blockchain gave money to somebody or has like a huge grants program and wants to do good with it. And I'm always very happy to see that because that does communicate that, hey, even if we're not doing direct grants, we're still supporting this movement in general. And that's super cool, right? Uh, mm, I very much like the idea of blockchains offsetting themselves. I think that makes a lot of sense. If I remember correctly, the first one to do it probably was Celo. They did I think, ongoing collaboration with Ren, where some of their staking emissions just get put into a fund that then does carbon offsetting. So that's pretty cool, and I wish every blockchain would start offsetting because the narrative in the mainstream about blockchains being terrible for the environment, the worst thing ever, it's very unfair, and I think Web3 as a community has this like very good tool actually to protect itself from the bad optics as well.
Yeah, well said. This made me think of something else because I was scrolling the Twitter machine and I saw Celo come up and they were positioning themselves as the green blockchain. And to me, it feels like we have talk about competition. These are the two main chains, Celo and Polygon, that are both aiming to be the de facto green protocol.
I think there's an infinite amount of these at this point. Like not infinite, but there's a lot.
A lot.
There's a lot of
What other ones are you aware of?
IXO,
Okay.
BitGreen. Then there's the oh my god, this wasn't EOS, but it was like one of the top 100 altcoin ones. Also opened up like a very large sustainability fund. I think we covered that a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Can't remember which one it was. Maybe you remember.
I do not
And
remember. All I remember, I'll be honest with you, the only ones that I think are legitimate, I shouldn't say that. The only ones that I think have significant traction and have caught my attention are Polygon and Celo.
yeah, in terms of having that narrative around them, I think that's the two. Yeah.
Yeah, having the
Celo's been
resources.
around for exactly, and Celo's been around doing this for a while already. I think they've been at it for a few years as one of their main goals.
What is your experience? I'll be very honest and transparent. I don't have any personal experience interacting with Celo. I have never used that chain. Have you used that chain?
Uh, I'll be also honest, haven't had a reason to yet.
Yeah. What about Polygon? Have you used Polygon?
Well, yeah, you know me. I got into ReFi a very long time ago with the whole Klima
Yep.
bull cycle, crazy bull hyper cycle. So
And when you gave to the grants, the Gitcoin round grant 14,
mhm.
did you like I paid some people with or donated to some of the grants with Polygon. That was one of the options.
I donated to all of them with Polygon because that's the chain I have money on. And additionally, I didn't want to donate on Ethereum because Ethereum's gas fees are expensive. So at the end of the day, I think I didn't want to go through the effort of then switching, between wallets and trying to like pay them all on their preferred blockchain. No, I'll just send you stuff on Polygon. Enjoy.
So it kind it sounds like to me, Sir Rez, that if we're indicative of the ReFi community, that Polygon kind of has the edge right now. What are your
Uh,
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they have a lot more TVL when it comes to regenerative assets right now. Like Polygon has DeFi, pretty healthy DeFi community, which I think helps a lot because in ReFi, what we are trying to do a lot is kind of appropriate things that DeFi has worked on and made very relevant. Just re-engineering them with different underlying building blocks and seeing what happens.
Indeed, yeah. So it's interesting to see how it's going to play out. I mean, I think Polygon is
Yep,
a beast. I don't think it's
it is.
going away. I think
It's probably not. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you said, it has traction, it has TVL, it has investment, it has resources. The user interface is great. Celo, I should investigate. I hope it catches on. Again, we need to have more than one
Yeah.
option. So
Maybe we could do like an exploring episode or something and figure out how to use it.
We should do that.
Because I don't know. I eventually want to get around to doing an exploring one about the Cosmos ecosystem, because what is happening there in terms of user experience is some of the weirdest stuff I've ever seen.
I've heard a lot myself, and I'm interested. Yeah, we could absolutely do that.
Yeah,
we should explore.
Time to give you like some stranded assets that you can't move out because you don't have gas in like the DEX's currency, and the DEX's currency, is required to do any operations, but you just move money to the DEX to swap for the DEX currency, but you can't because you don't have any DEX currency.
Yes, that old chicken and the egg thing.
Oof. That is a painful user experience problem, and
yeah. So now that I have pumped Polygon, I will also draw attention to this Green Blockchain Summit. So this is Polygon trying to bring together founders and investors and academics and operators to have, this is free, which I think is really cool. I think the fact that it's free is important because I think it shows that I think there's always a conflict of interest if you're paying people for like online events or charging people for online events about like regenerative finance, right? It kind of goes against the ethos of being open and available and altruistic. So
yeah, I mean, like I can imagine like a version of it where you have the option to pay, but instead of paying, it just buys carbon offsets and retires them.
Yeah. Well, I understand if it's in person, because in person's a completely different thing. You have
costs.
there are costs. You have to rent
costs,
out the hall, all of that stuff, get insurance, etc. So good on Polygon. I'm registered for this. Rez might be registering, and it's good to see that these chains are not just throwing money, but also organizing events to raise awareness and bring people together. So we will leave a link to that as well. So that's really it for the blockchain stuff. There wasn't a whole lot happening this week, but we do have some TradFi stuff. So let's get into this. This is the Res Happy, Res Sad game that we play. Austria returns to coal era and hedge against Russian power play. Rez, are you happy or sad that Austria is now burning a fossil fuel instead of renewable energies?
Rez very sad, but Rez sad because I don't know, like I think this is the bordering with Russia part of me speaking, but should have seen this coming. I mean, dependence on Russian energy, I think, has always been a bad move, very bad move, like very no bueno. Don't do that.
Yeah, I think that like the theme of this episode is the importance of options, right? Like there's a parallel even back to Verra here. If you're dependent on a country, one country only, and if that country, there's really no recourse against it, like a country like Russia, which tends to do what it wants, not to get political, but that's just how it is. You're opening yourself up to being in a situation where you either have to buy energy from a country doing things that you don't agree with, or having to burn coal or having to invest in renewables, right? But that's hard to do.
I think, it's like maybe not very politically convenient at the time when you're making these investments. It pays off over a longer time span, politically speaking. So I'm just, I don't know, like a bit sad, because at the end of the day, we could pour a lot of money into building renewable infrastructure, but there often just hasn't been the political will to do it, and then I guess just people get very complacent with being dependent on Russian oil because you don't really notice that until something like this happens.
Right. I think that's it. I think that's part of it. So hopefully this is temporary. Maybe it's a short time. They get into coal. They meet their energy demands as they're pouring money into renewables. You are the irrational optimist. So has that thought crossed your mind?
That everybody's going to invest in renewables?
That Austria in particular.
I really hope so, yeah.
Everyone's going to take this opportunity to get off, to understand the challenges of being dependent on Russian energy. And they will realize they need to become energy independent. And the best way for most countries to do that will be through renewable energy or nuclear power. That's right. I'm
Yeah.
shilling nuclear again.
But, you know, it's like we need to just decentralize as much as possible and a bunch of different things. So, like, one of the things we can decentralize is energy production, because if we decentralize energy production, there's less of this cartel bullshit happening where, you know, a few countries or organizations can set prices for everyone else.
You know, when Rez starts swearing, things get serious. So there you have it. Second story, Rez happy or sad? Aramco's net zero plan will have net zero impact before 2035. Aramco is the world's largest oil producer, I believe, in Saudi Arabia. And it says it doesn't intend to cut emissions from current levels for the next 13 years.
It doesn't.
It does not. It doesn't intend to cut emissions from current levels, which goes against the headline, right? Which is, it should say will not have a net zero impact before 2035. I think that was a typo. Taboola News, shame on you. Rez happy, Rez sad.
What the fuck? Okay. Yeah, their strategy is, and I quote, staying flat. Amazing. Thank you. Very cool. Okay.
Pretty much. But they do pledge to hit their target set for 2050.
Well, good for you, I guess. I'm so confused by reading this piece of news. It's like, we are very publicly announcing that we're doing nothing. And it's like, did you have like a whole media team type that up? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, no, this is by Bloomberg actually. So that's yeah. So they're saying that they will have net zero impact. So I believe their net zero impact is they're going to increase production but keep their carbon emissions the same.
Maybe.
So in a way, well, that's what it says. It says that they're going to increase their they're going to increase million barrels a day by 2027, and but their emissions per unit of fossil fuels may fall. Is that good enough for Rez?
No, not really. Like, what? They're doing... Look, if you are an oil company and you're doing significantly less than Shell, you know, pick your game up. Let's go. Do something, please.
There you have it. So that's two Rez sads, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, not good. What about this, Rez? What about the macro? Mm-hmm. What about the macro markets? What about crypto firm Celsius pauses transfers, withdraws as markets tumble?
Oh, yeah.
What's the context? Give us the context on this.
Yeah, so me and Slapton decided that we would move all macro-related news into this week because there was a absolute flood of ReFi-themed news last week.
That's right.
And this week we are covering the most sad events, which are... we're heading into a crypto winter. There is like recession vibes everywhere, and we're definitely in a bear market. So this is like a very strange confluence of events to be in right now. And we're witnessing very big organizations get torn apart at the seams due to how the markets are moving, and it's completely insane to watch.
Yeah, do you want to give the background on what's happening? Like, what is Celsius? What happened to them? What's the problem right now?
Well, as I know that you're a user of Celsius, maybe it's better if you describe.
Okay,
tell us.
So Celsius is this it's this yield platform. So you give them your crypto, right? You say, hey, take my Bitcoin, take my Ethereum, whatever. They've got a bunch of things. And then they take it and they invest it for you in a way that you are unfamiliar with. It's like I call it like a black box, right? They do something with it. And you get a promised yield on it. That's usually juicier than you would find in a DeFi lending protocol like Aave or something like that. So for instance, I believe the yield on Ethereum is like 6-7%, something like that. So people like myself who go, I want that 7% a year, give them our crypto, believing that they're going to do what's right, or they're going to be prudent, they're going to be properly managing risk. However, it turns out they were doing all sorts of risky, high leverage investments, and when the market turned to shit, because that's what markets do, that's the cycle of every economic market, their positions were in threat of liquidation. A lot of money was lost, and they have become illiquid, meaning that the money that was lent can no longer be unlocked without it might not even be there in its entirety right now. The liquidity isn't there.
It's insolvent. It can't pay.
Yes, well, that's the threat, is that what we don't know is how insolvent it is or how long it will last. So what Celsius did, knowing that they were insolvent and knowing that a run on their money, a panic, if you will, people would find that their assets weren't there, has paused withdrawals, meaning my money that I gave to Celsius to invest is no longer available to me, and it can be no longer available as long as they want. It is possible, Rez, that I never see that money. Now, I knew these risks, so I did not invest a lot of money into Celsius. I never put a large amount of money into any yield platform. I spread them out. Rez, I decentralize them.
Nice.
Yes. With that said, I'm not sure what's safe, so I've taken all my money off of Yield Protocol. But this was the only one in which I got hit, and it was, I'll give you a personal story. I was going to withdraw my money from Celsius literally 5 minutes before I got the message from Celsius saying that your withdrawal. Yes. Now, and like that's mentally a hard thing to swallow, but the reality is I'm sure they had paused withdrawals before the memo went out. So it wasn't as close as it appeared to me, but I'm not even kidding. I was going to take my money out because I heard the stuff that was coming down from Celsius. I was like, I'm out. And then I got the memo as I was doing it. And I was like, okay.
Pressing the button, someone just presses, but you can't press button.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, Celsius has what's called a HODL mode, meaning that, and it's a security feature that you can activate so nobody can withdraw. Like it's a 24-hour basically time lock, which I have on it. And so that's what I was in the process of removing. So I couldn't even have gotten it out that day. But it's just funny to think that I knew to take it out and I couldn't act fast enough. So yeah, give me your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? What's the takeaway from this for me is what I already knew, that when you give your money to somebody else to invest, the risk of them losing your money is real. It doesn't matter who they are, and not your keys, not your crypto. And you cannot give more money than you are willing to lose to these platforms.
Do not do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think this is the part where I'm going to say not financial advice, but kind of it's going to sound like financial advice, and I'm
none of this is financial
qualified to say it.
Let's be clear on that. None of this is financial advice. But if we would give financial advice, what would you say?
Yeah, if we were to give financial advice, which we aren't doing, it would be that be sure that you would, in a situation where you lost all of your investments, you would still not be completely destroyed and would at least have something. Because emotionally, you are going to make very bad decisions if you are either close to losing a bunch of money that you can't afford to lose, or you do lose a lot of money that you can't afford to lose. These situations can end in suicide for people. It is not pretty. You have to be very careful with thinking about like how much money you can stand to lose before you feel your life is destroyed, because you are going to be emotionally invested in the outcome, and it is not going to look pretty.
Yeah, I think it is. No, that's a good point. And it's good that you got serious, because it is a serious matter, because as much as we want to say money doesn't matter, money matters. It matters in the world we live in. It matters with borderline happiness. That is not my opinion. That is what science shows, that you need to have a certain amount of resources, most people, almost all people, to be functioning and happy. Yeah. So 100%.
Second thing, well, you already said, which is just not your keys, not your crypto. But I think the third thing, which we need to emphasize over and over again with protocols or services promising very high yields on whatever your investment is, the higher the yield you are seeing, the higher the implied risk in the system of this turning out very badly.
Good point.
Yeah, so this is also why when you see APYs which are significantly higher than 10%, they are almost always Ponzi schemes.
Are you suggesting that 30,000% APY is not sustainable, Rez?
Well, if we increase everything by... It depends. I mean, are we talking about 30,000% in dollars? Because then that's very unsustainable. If we're talking about just... we have 10 tokens now, and we're going to have 35,000 tokens in like a year, then it's a different discussion, because at the end of the day, we just have more tokens. It doesn't necessarily mean the market cap goes up or down, because, as I think retail tends to forget, thing you actually care about is what percentage of the whole pie you own, not necessarily what is a token worth. So if I gave you 10 more tokens, but I gave literally everyone else 10 more tokens, you would all be the exact same amount of wealthy. It won't change necessarily. It doesn't have to.
You can get an economics degree for like 6 figures in America, or you could get into ReFi or DeFi, get wrecked, and learn your lesson for perhaps far less.
For free, maybe. Maybe. Not for free. You still have to pay for it.
When people are like, hey, I lost $30,000, it's like, but you learned what would have cost 6 figures in an American institution of higher education.
Yeah, so or you learn something now when so next time when you start doing this form of gambling, at least you'll be aware that this is what you can lose, and nothing's very certain. So tread at your own risk.
There's no reward without risk, Rez. That's the long and short of it. Yeah. I have one more story. My buddy, I just met him yesterday, actually. He's very crypto wealthy. He early adopter, got into Bitcoin in 2015, very wealthy. He put 6 figures, healthy 6 figures into Celsius. And he's a liquid right now. And he's just like, I mean, he can afford to lose it in a way that I couldn't, but he's just like, yeah, I knew it. And it's, sometimes he's a savvy guy about crypto. He's like, I knew it, and I got caught up in it, right? And he says, as soon as I get that money back, I will never do this again. I'm going to load it all up into a cold wallet like I used to do back in 2017 before these yield platforms. We'll see. I still think that there's not financial advice. My personal strat on this is, like I said, be aware of the risk. Only invest the money to these yield platforms that you're willing to lose. And I think there are some yield platforms that are offering more conservative yields. As an example, I'm into Bancor, which is a decentralized lending platform that's giving like 6% on Celsius, which is good, but it's not I've seen 10% at plus, so
related to Bancor, well, this is very impromptu news, and I don't know if you saw that. I got called out on Twitter for not noticing that happened because I'm on vacation. But
it's okay. So the impermanent, so that's like a whole separate thing. So Bancor has impermanent loss protection, and the way that they make that up, impermanent loss is when your assets move in value against each other, and you end up with the more of the less valuable asset. It basically is an acceleration of how much money you would lose if the markets change. So the way they make that up is with a native token, but because their token is under such stress because of macro conditions, they had to pause impermanent loss protection.
Yeah, because their token was getting dumped by Celsius. And getting dumped by FreeAC. Our next thing we're about to talk about.
Let's get into that. So, that's a good segue because it shows that everything in this space, not everything, most everything, particularly the big institutions, are connected. It's all you're
interdependent.
So you're going to see this big unwind, which we're already seeing. Once one dumps, they're holding another token, they dump it goes down, its positions are in jeopardy. So go ahead, what's Three Arrows Capital?
Yeah, so Three Arrows Capital, I think on Wikipedia it says that they're a hedge fund, but I believe crypto generally knows them as a venture capital institution, which basically means they are an organization that funds crypto projects. That's historically been what they do. They have historically had very good reputation in the space. They have been very respected. And now suddenly, they are also insolvent. And in addition to this, they were managing some of the treasuries for the projects that they helped fund. So what they did was they went up to these protocols or projects and were like, hey, we gave you a bunch of money, but you can custody it with us, and we'll pay you an 8% APY on dollars if you keep your money with us, and we'll give it to you when you actually need it. This way, number goes up while you are working, and then when you need it, you just have more numbers. This has resulted with these protocols being ghosted now by FreeAC when they the protocols have reached out and asked like, hey, can I get my money? I need to pay people. What's up? No response. So it's very spooky.
And I heard that this is I don't have any evidence personally, but I've heard from protocols that have been affected that one of the challenges of even knowing how much money of theirs exists is that they commingled all of the money together of the different protocols. So it's like a slush fund. They took the money held by project A, B, C, D, E, F, G and put them all into one account. So who knows who has claim to what money? I mean, as a general rule, when you have separate accounts, you must keep them separate for proper accounting, not just in VC world, in every serious business world. I have, I don't know how many bank accounts for different things, right? That's proper accounting. I would probably even argue that there is illegality in TradFi of commingling funds like this.
Could be, yeah, especially if you lose, there's like no good way of keeping track of anything anymore.
Right.
Because, yeah, I've heard the same thing as well. I don't have any links to this that I can provide right now. But it was, that there were a few Ethereum addresses where all of these protocols paid into just directly as a transfer. So it's not very tracked on the protocol's end of where is their money exactly, what is it doing, who has it, nothing.
Right. What I think is fascinating, and I can speak to this personally because I got caught up in it, my buddy got caught up in it, these protocols got caught up in it. One of the central tenets of crypto, as far as I'm concerned, is don't trust, verify. Right? In a lot of ways, crypto rose because we had a system in which we could not verify what was happening in the monetary system, et cetera. And when I think we know that when times are lean, but when we get into these bull cycles, we lose our freaking minds, lose our compass, lose our ethos collectively, and we start trusting Three Arrows Capital, trusting Celsius, even though we cannot verify what they're doing with our money. And it's a very interesting psychological cycle that I think we see that also goes with the cycle of money. When times are good, we trust everybody with our money. And then we get a rude awakening that we should be verifying, not trusting what's happening with our money.
Yeah, and then we forget it, and then this happens again.
It's almost like people are doomed to repeat their behavior that could be, you know what I mean? Self-destructive.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a society level psychological element to this of we as a society tend to forget things or not feel the same way about things anymore if experience was too far in the past. So we can't recognize anymore that, hey, this is exactly the same situation. We're just doing it again.
This time is different, right, Rez?
Exactly. This time's different. And there will always be people, like even in, like, legitimately good times that are going, we're in a bubble, we're in a bubble, we're in a bubble, we're in a bubble. And then they keep saying that for 15 years and then they're right,
That's true.
It's not necessarily like very easy to identify this. I mean, there will always be people saying this is that moment, but as on like a societal level, it takes a very long time to figure that out.
Right. But imagine, so maybe a solution to all this is if people write their ethos down, don't trust, verify, not your keys, not your crypto, put it on their computer monitor and have a reminder every day. Here's the challenge is in good times, if I see you, Rez, putting your money into one of these yield protocols and you're like, this is going great, I'm getting all this interest, I'm going to say, well, like, I want that. Right. So and
FOMO, hard FOMO.
It's FOMO, and so I'm a sucker for not getting the yield that you're getting, and a lot of people feel that way. It's like, well, he's getting 10% on his crypto, I'm getting nothing. I'm getting diluted to some degree. I'm gonna go do that, and this is the reminder of the risk of that. So, interesting times. I do believe, not financial advice, that we are in a bear market. I think we are in crypto winter. I think it's going to last far longer than anybody. I shouldn't say that. Most people are talking about. Is the recovery this month? I don't think the recovery is this year. I think it's 12 to 18 months minimum before we see much recovery in crypto, like a long-term sustained recovery. My meme right now is every pump is a scam pump for the next year.
We're on the same page, and obviously, listeners, you can have any opinion you want. At the end of the day, both me and Slapton can be heavily wrong, and
No.
this is kind of the situation with not being able to see the future clearly enough. No one can. But the feeling I'm also having is that we're in like crypto winter because of the nice events that I described before, and the collapse of Terra, and all of this new, very high quality, very fine grained FUD that we have circulating in the market. It's going to take a long time to wear off, even though there are still very cool things happening, even though people are still building, even though, the space is getting better. I think it's going to go unappreciated for a while. And that's just the market or the sector or the industry we're in. This industry does work in these kind of cycles. You're going to have a few times that you're going to be heavily undervalued, underappreciated, and then you're going to have very intense periods of being overvalued and overappreciated. Right. We don't have this like steady climb. We have this like woo roller coaster to the end. That's gonna be forever in my head, at least.
And to be fair, that's why markets work, is because you do have sentiment that does not correlate one-to-one with the actual value. If that's what you have, investment wouldn't be possible. Right. Mm-hmm. So you need this volatility, and you need to some degree for the valuations, the sentiment to be different than the actual value of what you're investing in. Yep. Otherwise, why would you buy something if you know that its price will always be its actual price? You can't make any money that way. All right. So the last thing is, and this goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. It's not just that crypto's in a cyclical, downs, the down part, the bust site part of the bust cycle. It's that. Mm-hmm. TradFi, and as much as crypto doesn't want to admit this, we follow TradFi. All of our fiat is powering crypto at this point. And so the United States Fed is raising rates, interest rates, the rate at which they're lending money to banks, meaning that money is harder to come by and more expensive to borrow from the banks. And the whole point of this is to deflate the economy and to counter inflation. So you and I cannot predict the future, but you and I can read the current headlines. And the current headlines are the Fed in the United States is trying to slow the economy down and fight price inflation. What are your thoughts on all of this, Sir Rez?
It's very hot. So there are a few things happening here. I think the most obvious one is just there's going to be less money circulating that is just easily accessible over time. So that is going to make people hoard money instead of assets. I think that's one of the inevitabilities we're going to see. The second thing is I think we haven't seen the end of collapses when it comes to hyper-scaling startups, startups that are spending a lot of money to acquire customers with a very long payoff time for the amount of money that they're spending per customer. This is going to go like... This is going to be a strategy that not a lot of investors are going to look to participate in the near future. It's not going to get rewarded in the same way. And because of that, I think a lot of these hyperscaling startups are still, even now, just realizing that they need to lay off a bunch of people if they want to have any hope of having enough runway that they will be able to raise even more money when the markets recover again. Because they do not want to raise money right now. If they raise money right now, their company will be worth less than the last round. And this is considered the ultimate death blow for a startup because investors are very afraid of working with startups like this.
Yeah, good point. Very good analysis. So it's not just a bear winter cycle for crypto. I think it's what we're going to see after 2 years of the Federal Reserve printing $5 trillion. You need to unwind that. They're hell-bent on it. I think they see a political opportunity, a space to do it right now. And they're going to do that. So not financial advice, but personally, I'm keeping cash on hand. And I think that, my target for the Ethereum bottom originally was in the 900s. We hit that last week. And I personally think we will see much lower.
Yeah.
And I'm using
Um.
levels pre-COVID, like when Ethereum was $300, as my benchmark for the
Ooh.
bottom. Oh, well, like,
Okay.
why not? Right? So
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
pre-COVID, we were at $300 in Ethereum. Then we saw a infusion of 5 trillion USD into the economy. 5 trillion. And we saw this meteoric rise of all crypto assets. And now we're already seeing a deflation of that bubble to some degree. And now we're seeing the Fed pushing even lower. Why would Ethereum be significantly over that pre-COVID $300 level?
Because I think there's been a lot of very cool stuff that has been built on top of it, and the
Okay.
space is maturing. And I think also the $300 level, I personally believe was a period of time where Ethereum was heavily undervalued.
Okay.
So like it's kind of complicated. I mean, if you compare Ethereum to what your average large American bank market cap is, I think we're in a situation where Ethereum is cheaper than the entirety of JP Morgan right now by a bit now.
Okay, yeah, fair retorts. So may I ask?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you this: my bottom for Ethereum. This is when I think this is not financial advice. My prediction.
Yeah. People, just so we're clear, I don't even trade on my own opinions
There
on
you
where the
go.
market
But
is
I'm
going.
curious at what you think the bottom is. So I think the bottom will be around 400 to. This is a big range. I'll be specific. 500 USD.
Okay.
What do you
I
think
was
the
gonna
bottom?
say 600.
Okay,
I
we're
think
not too far
600
off.
is. Yeah. I mean, I did say 600 like 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
then my trader friends asked me like, "Hey, uh, why aren't you shorting Ethereum?" To which I
Yeah.
responded, "I am legitimately afraid, and I am uncertain of the future, and this kind of trading is just not something I personally feel comfortable doing because I don't trust my own predictions of the future that much."
But notice how we both said I think and not I know because I
Yeah.
don't know.
No
Nobody
idea. No.
knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing. I think it's. I think people who are really hooked into this space have similar opinions. A lot of people I've talked to are like the
Yeah.
pain's not even close to over. And then the people who aren't too much in this space or new to the space are like, we're going back to the moon. It's like,
Yeah, going back to Ethereum at 4,000. Let's go. Woo!
yeah, eventually. But we did it.
Eventually.
We did it, Rez. We did a full hour. I knew we would.
Whoa. This episode ended up being very long because we talked about macro and it was very fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
Any good plans for you for the next week? The week that is. Oh, we should mention, not set in stone, but change block next week will be hopefully will be happening with the CEO. So we can include him on our shenanigans. Hopefully soon. Anyway, any good plans? Any good, any tips? Anything you want to share before we sign off?
Nah, I'm just doing some writing. So I think I mentioned last week that I was planning on doing some writing. Still haven't gotten around to it. I had like a very nice spa day. Been going around Estonia, just kind of enjoying nice, comfy places. And next week should be a bit more of writing, and I'm hoping to get a few very obscure medium posts out of it, which are going to be comprehensible to hopefully a few people, and then I'm going to be very happy because I like putting those kind of ideas out there.
I love it. Here's what I'll share with you because this is related to what you just said. I remember you said last week that you, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, you're popping some like ADHD meds, right? And then you write. I've been getting into, and I don't do this. I'm just starting to do this. Is caffeine, man, coffee. And, it's a psychoactive drug.
It is.
And I think it has the same kind of effect on your mind as something like a Ritalin as ADHD. Like it focuses you. It gives you a, I don't know, a focus, I guess is the best way to put it. And I found it's like super powerful to get tasks that I don't want to get done.
Yeah, I mean, caffeine is interesting. I also have a long history of caffeine abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people with ADHD kind of find ways to cope, and that happens to be one of them. But I don't think enough people actually appreciate that caffeine is a drug. Like it's a drug, but it's a drug that we've socially agreed on that is like normal. It doesn't have any stigma with it because people use it to function better, and then it doesn't have any significant heavy side effects. So then we all have agreed that hey, even though this is an addictive drug, it's fine if society uses it. We won't judge people for drinking coffee.
Interestingly,
But
caffeine withdrawal has just been recognized as a mental health issue. And it's been established now that there are clear symptoms. You can absolutely be mentally, emotionally, and physically addicted to caffeine. And you need to be careful of how much caffeine that you rely on. You can, if you're like doing 4 cups a day and you go cold turkey, I was just reading up on this, like you're going to feel like you have the flu.
yeah.
You can't function for weeks at a time.
Headache,
yeah.
heavy headache. Yeah, it's not nice. It's I've experienced that.
So you gotta moderate it. So I'm gonna try to go for the middle path. I'm not going to succeed. I'm gonna be here next week going, let's talk about like jittery, and then you're gonna know that I'm completely hooked. But anyway, so yeah, I'll look forward to your Medium post. I will also be cranking on psychoactive drugs that are gonna help me with focus and productivity. And hopefully we can meet next week with change block people and do some beautiful things. Rez, you're looking tan.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
I've been working on it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace. Oh, remember to ape responsibly. Peace, dudes.
Peace.
And dudettes. Got 'em.